I guess you can monitor the camera in the mirror.
Yes, right.
Yes.
I can see if it's got my good side or not, you know.
Yeah.
In comparison.
This is usually my good side.
That's why I'm on this side, because this is my good side as well.
We got both of our... Oh, no, actually.
Here I am with Dan Mangan in the bowels of the Kelowna Community Theatre before his show here a little later this evening. Dan, we last spoke in July when you were here for Kelowna. Since then, you've had some pretty exciting developments in your life. You've got married. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I saw the CBC documentary as well that came out on the 20th of October. That was pretty good.
Yeah, very cool.
What I'm wanting to know, first question right off the bat here, is as a married man, has it altered your way of making music so far, altered your outlook at all?
Not particularly. I mean, Kirsten and I have been together for 7 years, and since before I even did my first tour. So, it seems like a very natural step, and I can't really picture my life without her at this point. So, it feels good actually. It just feels very kind of natural and easy, and. I've been asked a lot whether or not I'm going to start writing more love songs, but nah.
Fair enough. Actually, what I was wanting to ask is, you're known as a bit of a relentless tourer. In fact, when we spoke in July, you mentioned how important touring is, especially for an emerging artist. Yeah. Is that going to change at all now that you're married? Is it more difficult to go on tour, even like you go to Europe in 2 weeks, right? Is it more challenging to kind of do that now that you're married, or is it just the same as it always is?
It's kind of the same. I mean, the principal nature of our relationship started right at the exact time that I started touring as much as I have been. So our relationship is based on the understanding that that's a very real part of my and our lifestyle. So no, I don't anticipate. I mean, I think that we will be slowing down next year just because we've been so flat out for so long that if we don't take some time off, we're just going to burn out. So we're anticipating the burnout and not doing it. And I'll do some other stuff in Vancouver. I'll be doing some film scoring and stuff like that. Cool. And then, I'm really excited about getting to work on another record. That's kind of on my mind as well. So
awesome. That was actually going to be one of my questions, but maybe we'll jump to that right away here. When can we expect a new full length from you?
I think it's going to take some time. We took a long time to record O Fortune, and we kind of did it on and off the road for over about 6 months. And I'd imagine we'll take at least that much time again. It's a process that I kind of feel good about, having time to look back on what we're doing and make sure that it's the right thing. And I've got some material together that I'm really excited about. Some songs that I think could be really interesting. But there's lots of work to be done and lots more writing to go. And I've got lots of ideas swimming in my head about how I want the record to sound and lyrically where everything is heading. But it's still unfolding very slowly, and I wouldn't expect anything until probably 2014.
Okay, well, I'll be waiting for that excitedly. I'm sure many other people will be as well. You're on the road right now, of course, and like we've mentioned, you're off to Europe soon. I've looked at your tour dates, and you play in Manchester at the back end of November, which is my home city, so I was pretty excited about that. What I'm wondering is, you played in a whole bunch of cool cities while you're over there. Which place are you most excited to go to, or which venue are you most excited to play at?
Well, we've played the Deaf Institute in Manchester before, and it's a very cool spot. I actually really like that venue. But a couple of years ago, I got the opportunity to open for another band called the Broken Family Band at La Scala in London, which is a pretty beautiful, kind of gorgeous concert hall. And we this time around we get to headline it, which is really cool. So I think that's kind of a target on this tour. But in general, Europe has been really good to us, and there's just a wonderful sense of hospitality over there, and great audiences, and we always have a blast. So Germany, Holland, Switzerland, yeah, it's all this nice, soft landing spot. They really know how to take care of traveling bands. So.
Awesome. Speaking of your band, this is a great segue actually. You're surrounded by a very talented group of musicians. Do you ever feel uncomfortable with the fact that you're the focal point and they don't get as much attention as they deserve, or do they ever feel uncomfortable about it or disappointed? No,
in general, I feel like they get way too much attention, and I really feel like I'm holding. No, they're wonderful. I'm a really, really lucky guy, and I don't know how I roped them all in, but I did, and they seem to be sticking around, which is great. You know, I try to deflect a lot of energy that comes at me and give it to the guys. You know, I need them to always know how appreciated they are. So I do my best to share that energy. And I mean, it happens naturally too. I mean, generally when we perform, I get the vibe that each person in their station on stage is totally magnetic and captivating on their own. So when you put us all on stage, you know, I think that it's easy for the audience to kind of focus on one person at a time. And, you know, Gord's a maniac and he's bouncing around, and Kenton is, you know, so much fun to watch on stage. And I think that they do enough of their own that I don't really need to do that much to shed the attention, because it kind of naturally happens.
Speaking of them as well, and you say some very nice things about them, you have changed your lineup over the years. How much does that influence your sound? It inevitably does, of course. How much does it influence it, and does it affect you when you're writing music in that you're thinking to yourself, well, we can't do it this way because X, Y, and Z?
Well, I mean, when it comes to older material, those songs are going to breathe however they breathe. You know, we could do it with a sax and a cello and, you know, tambourine, and that's what the song would sound like, because that's what it is. So I'm not too worried about recreating recordings and stuff like that. And the band has changed a little bit over the years. I mean, there's kind of a core quartet. Kenton on drums, Gordina on guitar, and John Walsh on bass. And then on top of those four of us, there's kind of a rotating cast of Jesse Zubat on violin, or JP Carter on trumpet, Peggy Lee on cello, Tyson Naylor on keys. And there's sort of, you know, a bunch of other people that jump in when it makes sense and then back out. And all of these people, you know, the entire band, they all have 5 other bands that they're in. So this is probably taking up more time than any of those bands, but generally, as soon as we're off the road doing this, I end up kind of working on some project on my own, and they all go off on tour on their other projects. So, I mean, as much as we tour, I can't really imagine how much they've been touring, because they're doing multiple bands at the same time, and they tend to work it all around our touring schedule. So
that's awesome. Changing tact slightly, you're growing in popularity. You're known as one of Canada's new breed of independent musicians. Obviously, that's exciting. Yeah. On one level. I'm wondering though, do you feel kind of like you're competing, maybe not competing, but challenged by your own reputation now more than you were before?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I kind of came up, I think that people regarded me as this very DIY indie guy, and, you know, I've been written up so many times as being like the nicest guy in Canadian music, or the hardest working guy. And so that's a pretty good reputation to get, and I don't, you know, I've never fabricated or manufactured any kind of image. I feel like I'm just me, and I'm fairly approachable dude. So, if anything, you know, there's almost this sort of like cuddly image that has gone, and maybe that's the beard, or I don't know what that is, you know. And I mean, I think anyone who actually got to know me would understand that I do have a fairly, you know, jagged edge, and it's not so much about being a jerk so much as I'm very opinionated. Okay, well, let's bring that back a bit then. How would you describe Dan Mangan then if you were writing up your personality? I don't know. I mean, I'm very opinionated, and when conversations get political, and when, you know, that's kind of when it comes out more. I'm a pretty even keel guy, but it's not to say I don't, you know, I'm some malleable, you know, flake or something like that. But it's funny. I mean, I think that people have kind of picked up on the fact that I'm not a dick, and they've taken that to assume that, you know, I'm kind of wish-washy or something like that. So I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, the thing is that the media always finds an angle, and I understand that that's their job, is to kind of like find a story on anything all the time. So once they kind of find a way to kind of grip you or present you, label you exactly, then they roll with it, because that's easy, you know, and especially if there's already an image out there. The fact of the matter is, I cannot and will not ever focus too much on how I'm perceived, because at the end of the day, if I start trying to chase some image that I think is cool, I'm not going to be me. And the thing is, the reason why this is working, I think, is because I am me. And I don't like seeing veiled, cooler than thou musicians. I think they're full of crap. So, you know, the idea of me, you know, hardening my image or anything like that seems kind of disingenuous or something like that.
So let's keep on that tack a little bit. How do you keep so grounded? Is it just your natural personality, or is it a challenge? It's not, maybe not a challenge, but is there something you do that keeps you the way you are? And
you know, I've just surrounded myself with people who aren't afraid to give me crap. You know, it's the band is very honest, and if they feel like I'm wandering outside of, you know, being honest, that they'll call me on it. And you know, my wife does the same thing. My friends do the same thing. I get a lot of attention. I get a lot of, you know, kind of positive reinforcement from the world at large, and it's amazing. And you have to appreciate it. You have to be like, wow, that's incredible. And then, you know, when people are telling you stories about how your music has affected their life, like that's huge. That's amazing. And that's exactly why people want to create art, is to connect with other people, so that to commiserate, to make people feel like they're not alone, because some people are able to feel that same way or whatever. So you have to appreciate it. You have to be like, wow, this is incredible, and then you have to let it go, because if you start attaching yourself to the way that people think that you are, then you're lost. And I just sleep better if I just forget all the nice things that are said and just kind of focus on being me, Dan, the human being, you know, and being good to the people immediately around me, and just living honestly and with compassion and respect for other people. And I feel like that's key to me. It's just focusing on being a human, and then a musician, and then somebody who's in the public eye. The public eye thing comes way down the list for me in terms of what's important.
Awesome. Maybe we'll change a little bit here and move on to something else. I want to talk about your documentary with the CBC. Watched that on, I think it was last weekend, so pretty fresh in the mind. I really enjoyed it. First off, I would like to ask you if you were happy with it. Were you happy with how it came out? I was, actually.
Brent Hodge and John Siddall, who were the kind of director-producer team, I think they did an incredible job of you know, making a story out of the situation. And I think the photography is beautiful. I think it's edited well. It comes together, you know, really naturally. And they did a great job of sort of being flies on the wall, you know, and kind of capturing an honest portrayal of what's going on. There was a lot of footage in the film that I don't remember them being there for, which is a good sign, you know. Yeah, I mean, it's strange to watch it because there's a lot of me talking, just like kind of like this, you know, I'm just talking and talking and talking. So it's a strange thing to watch yourself talk, and then you're like, oh, come on, you're an idiot, just shut up, you know. And but the response has been great, and I'm really thrilled about the whole thing, you know, even just having the opportunity to have you know, a documentary on national television and stuff. I mean, that's incredible. It's insane. So the fact that they actually did a good job is icing on the cake.
For sure. And there was a lot of Leonard Cohen references in the documentary, and he's obviously a venerable Canadian artist and deserves tons of respect. I'm wondering if that was at your say, though, or was it the CBC who put that in? Or
I think I mentioned a Leonard Cohen quote at one point during one of the interviews or something. And then Brent found all this archival footage of Leonard Cohen stuff deep in the basement, in the bowels of the CBC. So I think that he kind of took it and went around with it. But no, I could never, ever personally, you know, start to draw comparisons with myself. I mean, that is just something entirely different altogether. And, you know, I'm a budding young musician trying to figure out exactly what the hell I'm doing. And that guy is iconic. So
absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's certainly not my bidding.
Okay, well, speaking of iconic, you played at the Orpheum. Amazing experience, I'm sure. Can you describe it in maybe one or two words for us?
One or two words.
Well, you have three if you...
Sure, yeah. The Orpheum was kind of surreal and oddly... It came at the end of a very long tour, and it was sort of the last show. So the show itself, the concert, you know, the band, everything had kind of gotten into a pretty well-oiled machine, you know. So it was strange because if we had just been home for a few weeks and then played it, it would have been like this weird thing. But we loaded in the same way we'd been loading in at all the other venues, and we
almost an autopilot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and certainly not an autopilot during the show, but the actual setup of the show, you know, the sound check, and then doing some media, and then having dinner, and then, you know, having a few minutes to take it easy before. So it was sort of like that whole thing happened much like all the other shows, and so it was strange to kind of set up for it, but then at the same time step out on stage, and you know, there's almost 3,000 people there, and it's this like unbelievable, gorgeous, hand molded, you know, opera house. So it was kind of crazy. It was surreal and oddly normal. It felt, you know, strangely normal in that we'd worked up every little step along the way, and it wasn't like there was this huge leap. So it felt like an appropriate next step, and a very exciting one.
Awesome. Keeping on the documentary, but it's relevant. You mentioned in there that as a musician, you've got to play some of these venues where they don't care whether you're there or not, at these pubs where nobody's paying attention to you. And I'm wondering, you mentioned, I think it was an Irish pub in the documentary.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that was the worst experience you've had on stage.
It was one of them, certainly. I don't know if it was the worst.
What's the worst?
I don't know. It's hard. You know, it's funny because like we've played terrible gigs, but I've come off the stage with a smile on my face, and we've played gigs that were like really great and sort of like big crowds or whatever, where I just felt like I wasn't nailing it, or I wasn't doing my best, or I wasn't kind of stepping up to the plate. And it's strange because in those situations you can get off stage and sometimes people are still like, oh man, great show, high fives and stuff, and I'm just sort of like, oh, but it wasn't, you know. And so that's almost more tumultuous, and the audience experience and the band experience is always two separate entities that are sometimes in line. So, you know, I've gotten off stage and thought, man, we tanked, that was terrible, I can't believe what we did, and people are going crazy after the show and they just loved it. And then other times I'll get off stage feeling like I've never played that well, I've never sung that well, we just crushed it, and you know, people are like, oh yeah, good show, man, you know. So it's a strange thing, and you just have to, again, you know, not worry about how it's perceived and just focus more on the output of what your intention is.
How did you feel after the Orpheum show? Was it one of your better ones, or? It
was great. I mean, it was obviously a celebration. It was our hometown, so there's lots of family and friends around, and and it was the end of a big long tour. So you know, it was pretty magical.
What's the best musical decision you've ever made?
Surrounding myself with people I can learn from.
Excellent. You're on tour right now with the Rural Alberta Advantage, and then in Europe you're with Jason Collette. Mm-hmm. Do you have any say in that, or is it that all labels talking and figuring it out? And
no, I mean, in this situation, the Rural Alberta Advantage and us have the same agent, which made it really easy to kind of do it. But no, there's definitely, I mean, the nice thing is the kind of team that we work with allows me to basically have final say on everything. So it was nice because we've known these guys for a while, and they're good buds, and Jason Collette as well. You know, we've known him for years. So it's great to be able to go on tour with your friends and just have a blast.
And now playing in Europe feels like the most normal thing in the world for you.
Well, strangely enough, yeah. I mean, we've been over there like 15 times in the last 6 years, it seems, something like that. So it is strange how, you know, it's become a thing that we do 2 or 3 times a year, rather than, I think for a lot of people, you know, they'll work a job 10 years saving up money for like a big trip to Europe or something like that, and that's so admirable. You know, I think that it's so important that people travel, and I encourage people to travel as much as possible because it's such a mind-opening experience. And I'm just fortunate enough that I have a job that allows me to travel a lot, and sometimes that's exhausting and the last thing I want to do, but I appreciate how much we get to move about the world.
What's the best thing about being a musician and the worst thing about being a musician?
Well, the best thing is just simply being able to be creative and let that be your kind of you're doing, you know, your career, your output, and connecting with people. I mean, that's the whole thing is, people listen to your record and they feel like they know you. That's a connection. You know, you go to a show and you get off stage and everyone's just glowing, like that's connection. So that's the best thing about being a musician. The worst thing, I would say when you're first starting out, the hardest thing is just the uncertainty that you will be able to do it forever, or that you will have the mojo or the kind of drive to keep it going. And the exhaustion. I mean, to be honest, like there are times when I am just mentally deflated and physically destroyed and sick, and I've got the flu, and we've got 2 shows tonight, and you know, a 12-hour drive tomorrow. It's like it can be seriously intense, and you rarely get a good sleep. And you know, it's when you get a good meal, you eat as much as you can, because you have no idea, you know, how much crap you're gonna have to eat in the next while. So just the exhaustion is really draining.
Well, difficult to sleep. When you come off the stage and you're exhilarated and you've played a show, is it difficult to come down from that and get to sleep that night?
Well, that's just it. I mean, you get off stage, it's, you know, 11:30 or something, and you're just flying, and you've just had, you know, this huge adrenaline rush. So what do you want to do? You want to go out and party and have a good time, but you have to also be up at 8 or 7:30 to get on, you know, to get back in the van and go and drive all day. And then you're driving, and that's tiring, and then you get to the thing, and then you have take a nap, and then you play a show, and it all happens over and over again. So, you know, I think right now I've got like 400 or 500 emails that I haven't even looked at, and it's just.
I thought I had it bad, but.
It's like just a couple of weeks of just like not even opening my computer, because we're just always going. So.
Did your folks, your mum and dad, did they always have belief in you that you would be a musician and you'd make it, or did they want you to do something else?
Whether or not they thought it would work out, I think that my mum in particular was always under the impression that I should just do whatever I wanted to do. So she was kind of gunning for me early on. My dad was a little bit more, you know, typical dad with that. And, you know, the thing is that they said, you can be a musician, you can do whatever you want as long as you finish university first. So even though I fought them on it at the time, I have an English degree. Even though I fought them on it at the time, I'm really, really glad that I did go to university, because it made me a better musician, it made me a better writer, it made me a better thinker. It just helped me kind of open up my perception of what reality is and what it is to live a life. So, you know, that was a big thing for them. And then after I finished university, my dad was sort of like, okay, well, whatever. I think he was still thinking, you know, I would go and do law school or something, but no.
Do you think you've changed his mind now? You think he's realised it's a good decision?
Yeah, no, they're both 1,000% on board at this point, yeah.
Did you ever have any doubts where you thought maybe this isn't going to work out, maybe I should go to law school?
Absolutely. I mean, it's not human to not have that.
Especially with your thoughtful nature as well, I don't think.
Well, yeah, I just, you know, I mean, it's strange. I mean, you're immersed in a community of musicians in whatever town you come from, and you're all poor. Like, you're all working in coffee shops part-time and barely making rent and playing gigs for no money to no audience and trying to record. So all of your extra money that normal people would spend on clothing or whatever, it all goes on to, like, recording and trying to buy gear. And you see, you're investing so much time and energy and money and passion into this idea of what it could become, and of course there's just so much uncertainty, and you know, the fact is the odds are against you. You know, for every 1,000 musicians that are kind of struggling, you know, a couple actually have a go. So you have to on some level have a disregard for those odds and just this kind of optimism that it could work. And you know, there's so many like cheesy cliche quotes, right? You know, Wayne Gretzky, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, and you know, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. You know, there's so many kind of like cliche self-help mantras, and there's validity to all of them, and at the same time you have to have some kind of rooted understanding that it is a job. Like, you know, it's not just that if you want it bad enough it'll happen. So you have to want it and actually do it, and you have to do the hard work. It is hard work, just the same way as it's hard work to go to medical school and be a doctor. Like, it's hard to go on tour for 3 years alone singing in crappy bars that nobody gives a shit, right? So that's hard, and that makes you better.
But we're getting towards the end. So I've got a couple of quirky questions, actually, for the last little part here. So first off, what was the first record you ever bought?
The first cassette tape, I think, was The Simpsons Sing the Blues, followed by Pearl Jam 10. And the first compact disc was Aerosmith, Get a Grip. I was like 8. I thought it was wicked.
Not bad, not bad. It could have been worse.
Could have been better.
Yeah, well, you know, middle of the road, we'll say. Okay. Next question. You once beat, it was in the Georgia Strait, I believe, you once beat Justin Timberlake in a Sexiest Musician contest. Yeah. Now, JT is known for bringing sexy back. I'm wondering what Dan Mangan brings back.
Well, I mean, I worried that poll, you know, kind of slandered the reputation of the publication it was in. I don't know. It's strange. Like, my wife just scoffs at that stuff. She's like, whatever. People are so dumb. You know, I don't know. The whole thing is pretty silly. I've never really considered sex appeal to be a big part of what we're doing. And I don't know what to say to that. But, you know, I mean, it's flattering. But again, I don't know how true it is.
Okay, fair enough. What's your favourite potato chip?
I'm a big fan of like the classic salty thing. I can do like the kettle chips, salt and pepper.
Next time I'm at the store and I'm trying to justify the selection of the very standard chip, I'll go, it's the Dan Mangan chip.
Yeah, there you go. Also, you know, I have, even though it's kind of gross, I have like a childhood nostalgic soft spot for the Ruffles sour cream and onion.
Okay. Well, I think we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for your time, Dan. I really appreciate it.
Nice
Thank
to
you.
See you again.
Yeah, you too.
Cheers.